Hello there everyone, welcome to a Gran Turismo 7 race review / opinion piece from this week's Daily Race C at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta in the Group 3 cars. In this video we're going to take a look at by possibly fixing one problem, maybe highlighted a deeper problem with the game. Now this race was initially, when it went live on Monday, it was a 13 lap race. We had tyre wear at times 5, we had fuel at times 2, we just had the soft tyres available. There was no mandatory rules in terms of pit stops or tyre changes, and it led to a rather silly scenario, stupid scenario towards the end of the race where everybody was driving about like this. So as we join on board with myself in the Toyota FT1, we're just completing the 12th lap out of 13, we're about to start the last lap. You're going to see we have a completely dead rear left tyre. As we go through the field, you're going to see that just about everybody is in completely dead tyre. Some people have got just the rear tyres dead. Some people, like for example the BMW, have got both tyres dead. Jack's about to lose both his front and rear left as well, but pretty much everyone, well everyone actually, yeah, and you know, different cars, BMWs, McLarens, Genesis, FT1s, GTRs towards the front, everybody is driving about on dead tyres. Now, some people were actually driving about on dead tyres from as early as lap 10, and the reason for that is because the pit loss was 25 seconds, and with the current tyre wear model, you can drive about on dead tyres with maybe only the loss of around about 2 seconds. So it made no sense for anybody to pit at the middle of the race to get a fresh set of tyres, because you only lost about 8 seconds with the dead tyres compared to 25 seconds with a pit stop. At the end of the day, you can't blame people for completing the race in the quickest way, as stupid as it might be. Now, a lot of people who do the YouTube actually highlighted this in their videos, and much to everybody's surprise, mine included, PD actually the next day changed the setting to include a mandatory pit stop. It was a very welcome change, and a lot of videos came out from the tubers out there saying as much, and I kind of put a community post out myself saying, yeah, this is a good change. PD seem to have listened or acknowledged their mistake, and this makes for a much better race overall, because driving around on dead tyres is just stupid, it's silly, it makes no sense, and it makes a little bit of a mockery of the game. Now, in the Race and Strategy Guide video that I always put on Monday, I had actually tested the pit loss, and I actually made a pit stop in that race, even though I knew the strategy to do was to go no stop and just survive on the dead tyres at the end. In the strategy guide, I actually did a pit stop, and I kind of did a wee spiel towards the end about how the race would be so much better with a mandatory pit stop, because it would give some strategy options, but label pit as early as lap 3 or 4, and that's exactly what I've done in this race here to go for an undercut on some of the drivers ahead of me. The thing about this race that we're looking at here is that I had ended up in drop split. Maybe been a little bit of a naughty boy in the race before, made some contact with a car, and I lost a little bit of SR. So the race I was in here, I was in with predominantly 8 drivers, and so what I kind of found as the week progressed is that whilst there was strategy options opened up with the change that PD did, it only really worked if you were in a lobby against lower rated drivers to yourself, and you actually had a little bit of residual speed over some of the drivers in your lobby. And that's exactly what I've done here, as all the pit stops have unfolded. In this one, we went from, I think it was P12, P11, P12 when we made our pit stop. We've had a bit of clear track, and even though our tyres are now very second hand, we just had a bit of a speed advantage over some of the drivers we're in this lobby with, and it's allowed us to move up into P5. So the strategy options that we kind of talked about in the strategy guide, being able to pit as early as lap 4, would work in a lobby like this quite well indeed. However, if you were in a lobby with drivers of a very similar speed to you, then further problems about this race started to manifest, in my opinion anyway, and we'll discuss that next. Now, the change that Polyphony Digital made to this race by introducing the mandatory pit stop was definitely a positive over what we had previously, because driving around on dead tyres for 3 laps is just beyond stupid. However, I do think the change also highlighted a further deeper problem with the game, and you probably know if you've watched my channel a lot where I'm going to go with this. Yes, we're going to talk about the tyre wear model and how it is a problem for strategy at the moment. Now, I've made videos about this in the past, so I won't go on about it for too long. I'm pretty sure Polyphony Digital are also aware of it, which is why we don't get sort of multiple tyre compound races anymore, or very, very rarely. But in my opinion, we went from a stupid race to a pretty much boring race at the moment, because there really just wasn't any potential for running a different strategy other than just pitting at the end of lap 6 and then doing first stint of 6 laps, second stint of 7 laps. You're probably thinking, but wait a minute, Womble, you just showed us a race where you used the undercut strategy to jump a lot of drivers. Yes, up against drivers who you are residually quicker than, you can still use an undercut strategy in Gran Turismo 7. In a lobby like we're in at the moment, where all the drivers are within a few tenths of each other, then there is no advantage to be gained from an undercut strategy due to the way the current tyre wear model works, because you still essentially have pretty much maximum grip until you run your tyres below 50%. So if you pit on lap 4 for a fresh set of tyres and the drivers around you or you're trying to jump have still got 60-65% tread left on their tyres, then you just go just as fast as you. They've still got pretty much the same amount of grip. And all you're really doing by pitting early is maybe you gain a small undercut of a half a second, or maybe some of the cars around you trip over each other, which does allow you to jump them. Then all you do is actually just give yourself a disadvantage at the end, because running a longer second stint of say 8 or 9 laps will take your tyres below that 50% threshold and will give you a grip disadvantage over people just running the traditional split it down the middle strategy. And that's why I kind of think that fixing one problem in this race actually just highlighted another problem with the game. A problem that I have highlighted over and over and over again. And as I said, I think PD are fully aware that their tyre wear model is not working in terms of strategy at the moment. And I remain hopeful at some point in the future they're maybe going to address this issue with the tyre wear model in terms of implementing strategy into races. But overall, I do applaud Polyphony Digital for actually making a change in this one, realising they had made the mistake. Yes, it can make the race a little bit one-dimensional and boring, but that's definitely better than just really stupid in terms of driving around on dead tyres for 3 laps, which just makes a little bit of a mockery of the game. However, the fact that they changed that setting does lead me to ask further questions. And that question, simply put, is why are Polyphony Digital not doing this more? Why are they not kind of realising that they've got the settings wrong for a race a little bit more often and addressing those settings in order to make the race more interesting, to keep the player base engaged? Because there's been many races in the past where the settings are just absolutely awful and people pretty much switch off after the first day of the race. Take the kind of race last week at Lago Maggiore in the Group 4 cars around Centre, tyre wear at ×1, fuel at ×1, a mandatory pit stop. People were bored of that race after 24 hours. And now I get that this race was a little bit broken in terms of driving around on the dead tyres for 3 laps, so they maybe felt they need to address that one because it was a little bit of a mockery of the game. But they have done it in the past. Who can forget the race at Le Mans in the Group C cars, where it was 12 laps and then after a day they reduced that race down to 6 laps, which some people seen as a positive change, some people seen as a negative change. But we do know that they have the ability to go in and change the race settings on the fly without having to reset the leaderboards. A lot of people thought in the past that they couldn't change the settings because it would require a change of the leaderboards, but we now know from this race and from the race at Road Atlanta that that is not the case. So it does make me think that when they've kind of got the settings wrong for a race, why not do something about it in order to keep the player base engaged and make it a little bit more interesting. Now, as somebody who has done races, I understand that sometimes that you can think you've set up the perfect race, then you run the race and you go, I didn't expect that, that's not worked, okay, I'll change it. You know, I did a race at Laguna Seca, so I did for a community race. I thought I'd set it up perfectly well to stop people from trying to do the no-stop, and I was wrong. People managed to do the no-stop, okay, adjust the settings, make sure that people now have to pit. You know, why run a race for a week with bad settings instead of just changing it like they've done here? And it does make, you know, there's so much more than other options as well. For example, you know, you could have the race running in different weathers. You know, you could have the race, it's daytime on Monday, it's evening time on Tuesday, it's night time on Wednesday, early morning on Thursday. You know, if you really want to get adventurous, you could, you know, just change all sorts of settings, keep it the same car and track combination, but change the settings up every couple of days to keep the race fresh, keep people engaged. Gran Turismo's biggest advantage over pretty much any other racing game is the fact that they can take the same car and track combination and they can completely change the dynamic of the race through the settings, and it's just something they do not take advantage of often enough. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say for this one. A welcome change. I do think it made the race go from stupid to boring, but it's nice to know they can do it. It's nice to know that they might be listening to these things, and I just think they should take more advantage of it in order to keep us, the player base, happy and engaged in playing their daily races for the duration of the week before the new one goes live. It seems like a very simple concept, and they're definitely not using it to its full potential. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, folks. I do appreciate it if you've made it to this part of the video. I know it's just a lot of me talking about things I sometimes talk about all the time on live streams and in previous videos, but yeah, hopefully it's something to get you thinking. Let me know in the comments below. I look forward to hearing what you've got to say about what I've had to say about this week's Daily Race C and the changes that they made. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.